Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming and a new build video. Today we're talking meta after the recent patch of 1.03. And believe it or not, the insanely strong Bone Spear build of Necromancer, which is able to speed clear, push tiers, is the best leveling build, and even solo Lilith is beating it in record times. Well, somehow it's been buffed in the new balance patch. In the case of its main basic attack, Bone Splinters, which was used to gain crit chance before, well, its base damage is up from 8% to 9%, and the essence generated is up from 6 to 7, which is very nice. Further, as the Bone Spear build generates a ton of vulnerability simply by using its main aspect and firing the Bone Spears, we're able to pick up the Blight version of the Corpse Tendrils instead, and that was buffed this patch. Blight Corpse Tendrils now have a 35% chance to spawn a Blood Orb per target hit, up from 30%. Blood Orbs lead to survivability in the form of their raw healing, in the form of Fortify, and through that, extra damage as well. And also, it's been weeks since my original Endgame Bone Spear build, and since then, I've learned a lot, made a lot of builds. In that time, I've gained a lot of Paragon points and important drops that have led me to update some previous builds for true Endgame. And now that Bone Spear has also seen buffs, a true Endgame updated version of the best Necromancer build in the new balance patch, it just makes sense. Within this new updated version of the build, we have entirely new Paragon boards and their setups, a change of abilities in what we use and why, cleaned up the aspects and the stat priorities on the gear, and I have alternative suggestions if you want to speed clear versus pushing higher tiers. And while I've talked about all this and explained all that, you've been seeing that build in the background smash the Nightmare dungeons with ease, with a good pace where we can set up for massive damage to burst stronger enemies, or just instantly burst it all down anyway and walking through the levels. There's the better survivability through our Paragon, through Fortify, and the CC we now have in our toolkit, and the improved CDR to have Bone Storm going more often, and so on and so on. I'm loving this version of the build, so it's finally time to share it. From the top then, we have our skill tree, which I'll just scroll down really quickly so you can see where I've spent all my points if you want to pause the video at any point. But let's go through it individually, starting with the newly improved Bone Splinters and their enhancement and Acolyte's Bone Splinters. This is why we use it. Hitting the same enemy with this auto attack gives you an 8% critical strike chance for 4 seconds. It also now generates more essence. It's just a fantastic basic, more so in this patch. In the core section, we're obviously picking up Bone Spear, where we also have some extra levels from our items. We're enhancing it and going for Paranormal Bone Spear because we're getting plenty of vulnerability from our main aspect that generates that anyway. So this just improves our crit strike chance with Bone Spear. We want to enhance our damage as much as possible, so actually having more essence helps with that. So 3 out of 3 unliving energy is still the thing, and of course imperfectly balanced, making them cost more essence, but our core skills deal way more damage. Further, we will need corpses to be using Corpse Tendrils, so we're still getting Hued Flesh. 1 level in Blood Mist gives us our iframe option. We enhance that and then go for Ghastly Blood Mist because this gives us a guaranteed way to spawn corpses at the beginning of a fight. Unfortunately, some of my gear is still giving me corpse explosion levels, but do ignore that. I'm not running that or putting any points into that. And on the next level, we have Decrepify, which is now in this build, and it should have been. Decrepify is just too strong, providing a consistent CC in the form of a slow, causing them to deal 20% less damage, which is insane. Enhanced, its Lucky Hit might stun, and then further with Abhorrent Decrepify, it has that chance to reduce your active cooldowns, so getting Bone Storm and Corpse Tendrils back much quicker. I'm at the point with Necromancer where you kind of need to be running Decrepify in every build. Previously I was running Bone Prison and it was just unnecessary, and because it's a curse we can also pick up Amplify Damage, so it's a big damage increase at 9% times to any cursed enemy. We're still picking up 3 out of 3 Death's Embrace for the damage reduction to close enemies and improving our damage to close enemies as well. And on the next tier we're picking up just 1 level of Corpse Tendrils because Decrepify is helping us reset the cooldown on this. If you were able to get some extra levels of Corpse Tendrils for your items though, that does help reduce its cooldown. We enhance it and we go for Blighted Corpse Tendrils, which was buffed this patch to have a 5% improved chance to spawn Blood Orbs as you use this. Blood Orbs heal you, give us Fortify, it's very important, and we don't need Plague Corpse Tendrils because we're generating vulnerability anyway through our Bone Spear casts. Next you'll see I've got just 2 levels of Necrotic Carapace. Every time we spawn a corpse, we get a bit of a Fortify. In this setup, we have 2 points left over, so I just put them into this for some bonus survivability. But more importantly is this whole bone passive section. Serration, 3 out of 3, better crit strike chance for the more essence we use on a bone skill. Compound Fracture, improving our damage with bone skills radically after we crit strike 10 times with them. Evulsion, arguably the most important one, is massively increasing the damage of bone skills to vulnerable enemies via crit strike damage. And we also have Rapid ossification at 3 out of 3, because every 100 essence we spend, it reduces the cooldown of bone skills, so it reduces Bone Storm's cooldown ever so slightly as we go. Down on the ultimate tree, of course, we're picking up Bone Storm and fully enhancing it to give it the damage reduction while active, to give it the 20% crit strike chance while active. So we want this active as much as possible because it basically makes us an absolute machine. With the defensive aspect, it also gives us a shield, so it's just awesome. It's a sacrifice build, so we're taking 3 out of 3 standalone for the damage reduction and the following points to improve the sacrifice of both the warriors and the mages. For the last point, it's ossified essence, which is massively improving our damage if we have more essence. So above 50 equals way more damage. At full, it's massive. In regards to the Book of Dead then, it's pretty standard fare. We have more than enough crit strike chance with the build right now, so between that and the Reapers, it's Defenders, because this actually gives us some damage reduction of a type, although this kind of is pretty meh. Skeletal Mages, we're still going Shadow, because we want improved maximum essence. The more essence we have, the more damage we get through ossified essence and the aspect again on our amulet. Then Golem, Iron Golem, no brainer, 30% times increased critical strike damage. It's still fantastic. But now it's time for the big one, the Paragon boards, which have changed a lot. As you can see, we have our starting board, but then the second one, which remains the same, then a third board, then a fourth board, and now a fifth board. From the bottom, we head right and up to the prime node, and then up and to the middle to pick up the glyph socket. Here, just like my blood build you'll see later this week, I'm running Blood Drinker. This is because with this build, we're able to spawn blood orbs for our corpse Tendrils. When we pick these up using Blood Drinker, we get the Fortify, which is a damage reduction, and also can even increase our damage. This is a fantastic way to get some survivability in this build, because we're spawning blood orbs, which heal us as well as give that Fortify. The alternative to this would be Territorial, which we'll talk about later. What's great about this is you can actually reach the 40 intelligence here on the starter board, and it's not a priority to upgrade this glyph because the benefits aren't major. So just get it in there and get the 40 intelligence, make sure you pick up preservation for the survivability, up to the left of knowledge, and leave on that side. Then we come up to our Bone Graph board. This board provides so many great rare nodes, as well as the actual legendary node itself. Simply using bone skills improves your damage and your maximum essence, which further improves your damage, so this is just an amazing node and the first one you're going to want. From the bottom of the board though, we head up and to the left and make our way over to the glyph, which is Exploit. We're doing a lot of vulnerable damage, and this improves your vulnerable damage the more dexterity you have. Further, the secondary effect scales vulnerable damage, which is amazing. It requires 25 dex, which is easy to get on the starter board, and you want to also come to the left to get Shaper of Bone and the magic nodes around that to further improve your bone skill damage. At this point, we're going to make our way up and to the right to pick up Calcified, improving our critical strike damage with bone skills and the skill damage, and the magic nodes around that for similar purposes. We'll head right and down to Reinvigorate to improve our maximum essence, which is a major damage increase, and also the magic nodes further improve that cap and give us extra essence on kill, which is really nice. Once we've got these two rare nodes, we can actually head up to the right to pick up Entomb, intentionally picking up the magic nodes that improve our critical strike damage and ignoring the potion healing ones. And while we're here, obviously picking up Bone Graft. Then we come back to the glyph and work our way up and to the left with only a few points to get to the board gate, where on our third board we have Scent of Death, the staple for all Necromancer builds. When there's two corpses nearby, 15% damage reduction, which is always, but in the rare scenario that there are no corpses, you get a damage increase, but that's rarely ever going to happen. This board is great because it comes with the Corrective rare node, improving our crit strike damage, and for a glyph socket, it has 40 intelligence around it without actually having to get level 15 on the glyph, because there's enough intelligence in close range, which is just so good. Anyway, to make this happen, we enter the board, head left and down, and pick up Corrective, going around the magic node for potion healing to pick up the crit strike damage improvements. From there, we can head up and to the left, going through Preservation, entering the glyph socket. Here we have Sacrificial, gives us 10% times increased damage while we have no active minions, which is just perfect. Again, even when this isn't level 15, we can reach enough to get 40 intelligence here, which is great. We do that by coming to the Death Mark node and picking that up, which also has other benefits, but gives you 10 intelligence. And with this active, we'll head down and pick up the Scent of Death node. From there, we'll head up and out of the glyph to the left and up to the left to pick up the next board, which in this case is the Bloodbath board, and we're using it purely just to cross over to another board and pick up a glyph socket efficiently. Considering we're fortifying, it also has the Harden node, which does improve your damage while fortified, which is a nice perk. We will enter this board and head up and to the right, straight to the glyph immediately, where we have Essence. We're just able to snipe plus 25 dexterity to get this active, without this being at 15 levels. But of course, I am prioritizing leveling this up right now, so I can get more dex and more benefits from the extra critical strike damage to core skills that this provides for our Bone Spear. Also, it improves your critical strike damage by a multiplier to enemies that are not healthy, so that's obviously great. In any case, get enough dexterity around that, picking up the rare node just for its benefits of hardened, and head up to the right to, again, another board. In this case, it's the Flesh Eater board, and we're just picking this up again for a glyph socket. We enter this board and head right and down and straight to the glyph, where I have Control. Control massively improves your damage to CC targets. If they're slowed, which they all will be by Decrepify, it's 10% times increased damage. I also run Penitent Greaves in my version, so they're going to be chilled as well. Now with Corpse Tendrils, we're stunning them a lot, so that's a 20% times increase, doubling it. Basically, this is a massive damage scaler that is insane. This is what I run when I'm speed clearing and want that extra damage. I would actually put Territorial here, which gives you a 10% damage reduction against close enemies permanently and improves your damage to close enemies as a whole. I would socket Territorial instead of Control then if I was trying to push my Nightmare Dungeon tiers, facing enemies like 30 levels or more above me. There isn't really a good reason to do that in the game right now other than personal preference and extra glyph XP, which is not worth it unless you're level 100 in my opinion. So that's why I'm running Control personally, but you can run Territorial there if you want extra defensives. Anyway, we pick up enough intelligence around this to actually get this active by activating the rare nodes, which also give 10 intelligence each. And at this point, we're now just filling in the board with all of our remaining points. And this is where I bring your attention down to Scent of Death here, where I've got 3 points that are wandering down here to this rare node. 50% damage increase to healthy enemies is insane, and also critical strike damage. This is a really good rare node, but I just wasn't able to afford it while still reaching 5 total boards and multiple glyphs like that. So I would recommend you pick up Ruin if you can. I'm currently level 87.5. If you're higher level than me, you'll be able to reach it. And also the magic nodes around it, which are fantastic, like all of them. After that point, I'm just going to be putting points into my glyphs. To be specific, I'll be getting the extra dexterity around Exploit to improve my vulnerable damage, and the extra dexterity around Essence to improve my core skill crit damage. That's where I'll be putting the rest of my points in the foreseeable future. But now it's time to talk about our gear. Let's just straight away get into it. On our weapon, you know what it's going to be. The splintering aspect on a two-hand sword. Two-hand swords provide a unique passive of extra critical strike damage, which is key to this build, and this aspect is how you're generating vulnerable on targets using Bone Spear and massively improving its bonus damage. This is the most important aspect in the build, so it must go on a two-hand weapon, and again, ideally a two-hand sword. From the armor then, we have on our helmet the Deathless Visage Unique. This leaves behind a trail of sort of bombing run of echoes of the Bone Spear. However, if you do not have this unique, I would recommend running the Might aspect to give you some damage reduction after you use your basic attacks, improving your survivability. But if you're wanting to maximize your damage, you're going to want this unique. On the chest piece, I have Disobedience, the best defensive aspect in the game. I don't need to explain this one. It scales your armor. That's amazing. For the gloves, we have the Grasping Veins as a top roll if you can get it, massively improving your crit strike chance as you use Corpse Tendrils. And then those affected and hit by the Corpse Tendrils, you'll deal up to 60% times critical strike damage, which is insane. We would put this on our amulet if not for a more important aspect on our amulet. On the legs, we have the other defensive aspect, which is Shielding Storm, providing us with a barrier when we use Bone Storm, really increasing its survivability and importance as an ability. For my boots, I have my other unique, Penitent Greaves. It's quite hard to improve your damage on the boot aspect, but we can with this unique. We leave a trail of frost that chills enemies, and we deal bonus damage to those affected by that. If you do not have these boots then, I would recommend either Ghost Walk or the Wind Strider aspects for the boots, improving your mobility. For our jewelry then, we have the Amulet of Serration as our amulet. This is really important. While it reads additive, it seems to work as a multiplier, so through this and your key passive, you're able to essentially double your damage. It is so effective that we run it on the amulet over the gloves because it's just that effective. If you can get a top roll of this, it will make a big difference. On the rings, we're going to need to deal with our resource generation. We want to be casting at max or close to max essence all times, so we need very important, very useful resource generators. Exposed Flesh is the best one. You have a 10% chance to generate up to 50 essence when hitting a vulnerable enemy with your bone skills. In AoE, that's happening a lot, and you're basically never having essence issues in group killing because of this aspect. It's the #1 priority. After that, it's up for debate. The Torment aspect is fantastic at its top roll. 30% times essence regen for 4 seconds after you crit with a bone skill is insane. But there are other ones you could get, like say the Umbral aspect. If you have a 3 to 4 roll on that, 3 to 4 essence every time you CC an enemy, which with me, Penitent Greaves is always, and also with Decrepify, and also with Corpse Tendrils, that's a great alternative. But those are the aspects. Now let's talk about what's actually on our gear in terms of affixes. The most important thing is to get Bone Spear levels on your gloves. You're going to absolutely want to have that because it's going to improve the damage of your core skill. If you're not using the unique boots, then you'll be looking to get levels of Corpse Tendrils on your boots because that is helping with the CDR of that ability. And on the amulet, which I do not have myself, you're looking for levels of Compound Fracture or ideally Evulsion. Now when it comes to improving your damage, you're going to want things like Maximum Essence, Crit Chance, and Crit Strike damage and Vulnerable damage as priorities, and on every piece that can take it, Lucky Hit, because that's going to help reduce the CDR of your Bone Storm and other abilities via Decrepify. After that, you're looking for other damage increases like Raw Intelligence, Bone Skill damage or Bone Skill Crit Chance, and other mods like Critical Strike Chance against injured enemies, and Close Damage and Far. Defensively, it's the standard picks. Max Health, Raw Armor, Straight Damage Reduction, Close Damage and Far Damage, Damage while injured, or Fortify Damage Reduction. These are all fantastic, and I would always recommend trying to get 4 out of 4 on your chest piece and your legs because these generically work as the best defensive pieces. Finally, for gems, we are running max life in our armor, we're running critical strike damage to vulnerable enemies in our weapon, and skulls for armor in the jewelry. As always, I'll do a quick gameplay guide, even though I'm pretty sure no one needs that. Basically, you're looking to apply Decrepify to everything to get that lucky hit chance to stun and also get your cooldowns reset. From there, if you want to be survivable, you can activate Bone Storm. Damage reduction and a shield is great, or you can hold off and use that when you're ready to pump damage so that you get the critical strike chance that it gives you. You can auto attack with Bone Splinters to generate some crit strike chance, and then just smash with Bone Spear, spreading vulnerability. The first moment that a corpse appears, you should be Corpse Tendriling to stun the enemies to make them take way more damage, generate blood orbs for you to fortify with, and massively improve your crit strike chance and damage as well. Ultimately though, just spam Bone Spear. Maintain high essence for your Bone Splinters. Use Bone Storm on cooldown. Maintain the debuff of Decrepify. Corpse Tendril on cooldown, spamming that whenever you can. And Blood Mist to either avoid bad situations or generate corpses to start a fight. But there you have it. That is my true endgame version of the current version of Bone Spear. I feel this was a little bit overdue because there have been changes and we've learned a lot. This build and the Paragon points and all that is certainly different to the one I made weeks ago, and I hope this helps you in the true endgame with your Necromancer. It is crazy that Bone Spear was buffed in any way, but yeah, I'll take it. For now, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.